Welcome to another episode of the Above the Airwaves podcast. I am your host, Stephen Cocaine, and with me, as always, is Tony Tran.
What up, guys?
And today we are going to be looking at the rise and fall of Steven Seagal.
Oh, yeah.
We figured the best way to do that would be to look at two movies in the same universe, world, storyline,
you know.
So hopefully soon to be trilogy.
Yes.
Right?
After the most recent announcement, yes. Oh, I'm excited.
And that, my friends, is Under Siege and Under Siege 2, Dark Territory.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing thinking of these stupid movies.
Now, I don't necessarily know how we should start with these. I mean, so Under Siege was a high-budget Hollywood blockbuster of a movie that Steven Seagal happened to star in. I'm gonna describe it that way. Where Under Siege 2 is a Steven Seagal movie that tried to ride the success of a major Hollywood blockbuster that Steven Seagal happened to star in.
Was that, like, directed DVD? Like, I remember that one being in theaters.
It actually opened number 2 in theaters right behind Apollo 13.
Oh.
So
It's hard to beat out Tom Hanks.
Yeah. I mean, Under Siege 2 actually, despite not being very critically accepted, was a commercial success. The first Under Siege movie had a budget of $35 million and took in $156.6 million at the box office. The sequel, Under Siege 2 Dark Territory, had a slightly larger budget at $45 million, even though it feels like a cheaper movie.
Feels like a super cheap movie.
I'm assuming it's because of all of that early 90s CG that they use. And the fact that I'm relatively certain that they actually crashed two trains into each other. But had a budget of $45 million, and it took in $104 million at the box office, which makes it, again, a commercial success, but not necessarily a critical success. Whereas Under Siege, the original, actually was a critical success, and I believe that was primarily due to the supporting cast and the fact that Steven Seagal is, I want to say he's kind of downplayed.
He is. He's kind of like, although he's primarily featured into it, it feels like he's kind of just the accidental hero rather than the I'm a huge badass character. He's just...
Yeah, like, I mean, Steven Seagal movies generally tend to have a bit of a formula, you know, somebody does something underworldly, shady, and Steven Seagal plays some sort of cop or military guy or something along those lines, where he then has to go in and kick all of their asses, and at some point in time it flips over from him just shooting everybody to him having that Aikido hand-to-hand combat moment fight somewhere. And that's pretty much the formula for every Steven Seagal movie, I think. Right?
Just about, yeah.
And this movie, Under Siege, is the first one that gave him a good counterpoint. You know, somebody that, maybe it was a pair of somebodies in this case, but a pair of somebodies that, met wits and ability with him.
They made it alive. So let's go ahead and play the trailer before we get too far into it. And here is the trailer for Under Siege.
It was the final voyage of America's mightiest battleship.
What's on this helicopter?
This little sweetheart, Miss July 89.
God, I love this business. I love you.
The party was wild.
Love you to death.
They really knocked them dead. Imagine this arsenal of tactical nuclear weapons falling into the wrong hands. The Pentagon never did.
4 minutes ahead of schedule. Damn, I'm good.
Now, a team of terrorists have taken over.
Wake up the president.
But there's just one thing they didn't count on. The cook.
Are you like some special forces guy or something?
No, I'm just a cook.
Oh my God, we're gonna die.
coordinate your efforts with us.
Yes, sir.
I see that you completely disobeyed my orders.
Roger that.
Ryback is an ex-SEAL. Expert in martial arts, explosives,
Stand back!
weapons and tactics.
I also cook. The Nimitz is tracking 2 Tomahawks just launched from the Missouri.
Where are they headed?
Honolulu.
Happy trails.
Steven Seagal.
I know you, don't I?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Been a long time.
I'll see you in hell, Sailor Boy!
Under Siege.
You think it was this role that got Tommy Lee Jones his, career-rocketing position as Two-Face from Batman and Robin?
It's entirely possible. I mean, just the
Yeah,
sheer insanity that he brings into this character. It's the controlled insanity.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, this is totally what got him that role as Two-Face.
Definitely shows the range he has, that he's capable of both, insanity and composure, if you will.
It's nice seeing Tommy Lee Jones as a bad guy because it's so rare because he has that grandfatherly tough love face where you don't see him as a bad guy too often. Not to mention the fact that he has hair in this.
Yeah, and usually if you see Tommy Lee Jones in a movie in the early 90s, you're seeing him as a U.S. Marshal.
Yeah, as a U.S. Marshal of some type or style. I mean, what was it? There was
U.S. Marshals,
yeah,
the
U.S.
Fugitive.
Marshal, the Fugitive.
God, the Hunted.
Yeah, I mean, he was mostly in Oregon for the most part, which is weird because he learned.
He actually plays the same U.S. Marshal in all of those movies.
Is it really the
they
same
are
Marshal?
all connected. Yes.
Nice. See, which is weird because he actually had in those 3 movies, he's a close quarter combat specialist and teaches people how to use the knife. And in this movie, he has no idea how to use a knife whatsoever.
I mean, I think I could probably pull it up here.
Is it kind of like the whole Jack Reacher thing where he's in a bunch of movies but don't actually use his name sometimes, but it's technically a Jack Reacher movie?
I do believe so.
Yeah, so it's the same universe, but they don't actively use his name sometimes, but he's actually in fact the same character. That's always a fun thing to find out.
So U.S. Marshals, Tommy Lee Jones plays U.S. Marshal Sam Gerard. I have to double check this here because I'm fairly certain.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 characters are the same character. I mean, it's
got to be U.S. Marshals Sam Gerard. Screw it. I'll look it up later.
Yeah, we'll tell you as we can.
Oh, no, wait. The Fugitive, U.S. Deputy, U.S. Marshal Sam Gerard, and U.S. Marshals Sam Gerard.
Nice. So
And I believe
out
some of the other movies were actually based on books about Sam Gerard as
There
well.
we go. Yeah, I mean, just like Jack Reacher. I keep going looking back at the old Jack Reacher movies because only recently have they been called Jack Reacher films. But the character Jack Reacher has appeared in a bunch of older films under different titles, so it's kind of cool. Anywho,
I mean, just seeing Sam Gerard, Tommy Lee Jones in this movie is kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
Because, I have a theory about this movie, that this movie only really got as big and popular as it is because of the fact that you had both Gary Busey and Tommy Lee Jones being batshit fucking crazy to balance out Steven Seagal's complete
lack of anything.
lack of emotion.
Yeah.
He's devoid of any sort of you expect some sort of yelling or something would have occurred somewhere in this movie, and the best he's got is, don't make me raise my voice.
Well, no, I'm going to have to disagree because there was one point in this film where he was very animated, and I'll tell you what that point is.
Go get my pies out of the oven.
And I'll follow that up with how important this was because then this happens.
Ryback, you got a fire in here. Get my pies out of the oven.
It's like the only time he yells in the movie.
The only time he yells in this movie.
Is get my pies out of the oven.
Anyways. Give him the rundown, Steve.
Steven Seagal. All right, so the basics of this movie is you've got the USS Missouri has just had President Bush, I believe it was at the time. That is the first Bush. Had visited it. It's going to be decommissioned. It's going to be stripped down. It's carrying,
Tomahawk
I want to say it was
missiles.
8 nuclear capability Tomahawk missiles.
I believe it was 8 Tomahawks, 4 of which were nuclear. Nuclear tipped?
It was 24 Tomahawks,
Was that what it
8
was?
of which were nuclear tipped.
Okay.
But either way, under the guise of the captain's birthday, Gary Busey, who is the commanding officer of the ship, or the commander of the ship, second in command, as it were, puts together a supposed surprise party for the captain where he brings in a bunch of caterers, a band, a Playboy playmate who's played by Erika Eleniak, and in the movie she plays Jordan Tate, 1989 Miss July, Playboy playmate. Coincidentally, Erika Eleniak herself, who was on Baywatch from 1989 to 1992 prior to being in this film, got her career started as Miss July 1989 in Playboy.
Really?
So, yes.
Wasn't she also in Beverly Hillbillies?
She was. She played Ellie Mae Clampett.
This was a lot of people's dream moment here in this film.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, you get to see her boobs.
And they look really fake.
They totally
They
look
look
fake.
super fake.
I don't know if they're fake, but they totally look fake.
Yeah. So just throwing that out there, guys.
Yeah. They're probably fake.
They're most likely fake. I didn't spend that much time looking, but
Either way, caterers, rock band, Playboy playmate, stripper to jump out of a cake shows up. Turns out that the band and all of the caterers are actually mercenaries, and the commander has brought them here in an attempt to take over the ship so that he can steal the Tomahawk missiles. And the only one that is capable of stopping them is ex-Navy SEAL, now Chief Petty Officer and cook, Casey Ryback.
who was thrown in the refrigerator because he was being insubordinate to the XO, played by Gary Busey, and had completely been forgotten about in the refrigerator.
Yeah, so Gary Busey's character believes that he is just a cook, doesn't know anything about him. He's just an insubordinate prick of a cook. Tommy Lee Jones' character is an ex-CIA operative, specialist in pretty much doing anything underhanded and shady.
Yeah, he seems to be a wetworks guy.
And I guess the history of it is he had previously been on a CIA mission to destroy a North Korean submarine, where he ended up, instead of destroying it, stealing it, and now they're planning on offloading the Tomahawk missiles, the nuclear Tomahawk missiles, to the submarines so that they can sell them on the black market.
Which wouldn't have happened if the CIA head, what's his name?
The Breaker.
Breaker, yeah. CIA head Breaker had decided that he was no longer a controllable asset and tried to kill him, which he failed.
So, we've got a couple of characters here, a couple of side roles that are worth mention, some of which because they appear in Under Siege 2 as well. So you've got Nick Mancuso, who plays Tom Breaker, CIA director, Stranix's former boss. You've got, I want to say it's Admiral Bates that shows up in the second one as well.
Stranix is Tommy Lee Jones' character, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, Andy Romano plays Admiral Bates, and then you've got the main characters of this movie, which is Steven Seagal as Chief Petty Officer Casey Ryback, former Navy SEAL, personal cook of the captain, Tommy Lee Jones, who plays William Stranix, renegade ex-CIA operative, who's leading the team of terrorists. Gary Busey plays Commander Krill. He's kind of a sociopath.
Yeah,
Kinda.
like power hungry sociopath. Like he's like, you can kind of see where he started off being a legit military person, and then just got passed over on promotions over and over again just because he's so full of himself.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what drives him further into the madness.
Then you've got Erika Eleniak, who plays Jordan Tate, Playboy playmate, July 1989. Look it up; it's on the internet. who is a model slash actress who shows up on board, ends up falling asleep in a cake after taking.
She was drugged, yeah.
After taking anti-nausea seasickness medication or something, and ends up being woken up by Casey Ryback and effectively becomes his sidekick through the rest of the movie. And then you've got Cole Meany, who plays Dahmer, which is Stranek's right-hand man.
Or as we like to call him, Chief O'Brien.
Chief O'Brien.
From Teleporter to Room 3.
Yes. Who is also in Con Air as the head of the FBI, I believe.
I believe so, yeah. It's always weird seeing him because like he's such a very known face, you know, and so whenever he pops up, you're like, oh, yeah, it's Chief O'Brien.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this movie, right? Basically, starts out with, this birthday party thing is being planned. They're trying to hide it all from the captain. It looks innocuous enough. Nothing particularly stands out as shady, aside from the fact that Gary Busey's character, the XO, Krill, seems to have a bit of a vendetta against Steven Seagal's cook character. Ends up locking him in a freezer for insubordination, and the reason he gets locked in the freezer is because they're attempting to plan the surprise party, and anybody who gets thrown in the brig has to be signed off on by the captain. So if he were to actually throw him in the brig, Commander Krill would have had to explain to the captain why he was doing that, which would have ruined the surprise party, so on and so forth.
Ryback refused to go to the party because he's the ship's cook, and only the cook makes food for the captain, and so Ryback wanted to talk to the captain about the fact that all the food was being brought in, like he did not want to attend this event.
So essentially all of the crew gets told they have to go to the mess hall. They're going to be in the mess hall for this surprise party, blah blah blah. So everybody flies in, the band, the Miss July 89, and the caterers.
I have to ask, Steve, as a musician yourself, how good are you at shooting? Because like, is there like a Merc musician type of mix? You know, because
well, me personally, I could I put two in the chest at 50 yards, but I mean I'm no sharpshooter.
Yeah, because like it's really interesting, 'cause I can understand the catering crew who were also mercenaries because like this is handing out food. But like they had a legit band playing that all whipped out guns and started shooting at people. So I mean,
see what I'm figuring is right. They had their whole mercenary team, and while they were picking out jobs for people, they were like, "All right, who can play guitar? Who can play drums? Anybody?" I mean, because you could learn how to play all of that stuff before you join the military, and you never really stop playing guitar or drums or anything. You just kind of pick it up while you're going, even if you got other stuff going on. So I think it was just totally one of those like, all right, well, I can sing, so I'll sing in the band. You can play guitar, you can play bass, you can play keyboard. Great. Okay, are you a drummer? Awesome. Let's do 3-4 weeks of practice just to get a couple of songs down here. We really only got to pull off one or two. And that's good enough cover.
Then we kill everybody. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's probably what it was. The caterers, the only reason they're catering is because they couldn't play an instrument. It's basically what it comes down to.
Like the cover was just too good in my head. Like what are the chances? You have your own like subterfuge merc gang. You're like, hey, we can be a band, right? Yeah, we got enough guys here. Bill and Jim and Paul over there. Like, they've been playing for weeks.
Well, I'm just saying, you're not even as a mercenary. You're probably not mercing all the time. There's downtime. You got to figure out some way to fill that in.
So, anyways, I was just wondering that because it just seemed a little far fetched in my personal opinion.
I will say there is one thing that really bothered me as a musician. So when Tommy Lee Jones is coming in and he's talking to Krill in the first place, and he's like, "Yes, where should we set up? We're all good to go. We're all set up. We're all good to go. Where should we set up?" And it's like, wait. You just told him that you're all set up and you're all good to go, but then you asked him where you should set up. As a band, you could probably throw everything together in 5-10 minutes. Maybe if there was stage sound and everything already hooked up and you had speakers, if you're bringing your own PA and everything, you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour and a half maybe to set all that shit up, sound check, you know. It doesn't, like, that just rubbed me the wrong way just as a musician because of how ridiculously simple he made that look.
Well, what about the fact that when, you know, they land and they come in and Miss July takes her pills and passes out at some point, we don't know when or how does it make you feel that the entire time that the band is playing and there's singing being done, that Tommy Lee Jones is physically doing nothing other than just standing there holding a mic?
Yeah.
What kind of a front man is that? Like, yeah, let's get this going, and he just stands there. And everyone's around him is playing and singing. He's just standing there in front of the crowd. Like, why does nobody call him out on that?
Maybe it's like a George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelics style band, where, you know, George Clinton is only really there to throw out that one catchy line every once in a while, and the rest of it is all, you know, backup vocalists and stuff, so that he can come in and just be like, you know, why must I be like that? Why must I chase the cat? Nothing but the dog in me. And then the backup singers, you know, they kick in with the woof, woof, woof. And then they sing that whole line. I don't know. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird, you know, like just watching this film and just seeing Tommy Lee Jones being this awesome character, and then the music starts and he's doing nothing. He's just standing there.
Maybe he just really wanted to wear a leather jacket and that wouldn't work for a caterer.
Yeah, leather jacket and the bandana.
Yeah, maybe. So, I mean, natural progression, band leader to mercenary group taking over the USS Missouri leader, you know.
Yeah. So, anyways, continue. The band starts up playing.
So, band starts up playing. After a couple of songs, they throw it out like it's, hey, Gary Busey comes out dressed up as, you know, Miss July.
Miss July? No, it's not.
No, it's the XO in the worst cross-dressing I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, this was worse than Boondock Saints. I mean,
and then everybody laughs, ha 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 ha, and then Tommy Lee Jones, who's the highest-ranking officer in this room, guy in the back stands up, says he's third in command. Tommy Lee Jones puts a bullet in his head, and that's when the terrorists say, okay, we're going to take this place over. They start locking everybody up in the forecastle.
I think what's interesting is that when they're locking everyone up, there's at least one person that resists, and he gets shot, and then Tommy Lee Jones shoots the person next to him, and he says, if we have any heroes, not only will you be shot, but the person next to you be shot. And that's actually a really interesting strategy to prevent people from being heroes, because a person is very much willing to sacrifice himself, but the moment they put someone else in danger, like, I thought it was really clever.
Yeah, it definitely shows the interesting thought processes he has.
Yeah.
Taking things over, you know. But Steven Seagal at this point hears some shots, and he's telling Nash to not only get his pies out of the oven, but also that there are gunshots going on. Call the captain, check it out, blah, 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 blah. So Nash, the MP that is keeping tabs on him in the freezer, talks to the XO. XO says it's fireworks. We'll send somebody down to relieve you. They send somebody down who kills him. And at this point, Steven Seagal has hidden in the vent of the freezer. And when the two guys come into the freezer to try and kill Steven Seagal, he drops out, kills both of them, and then preemptively sets a bomb in the microwave that coincidentally will
bomb
go
or
off.
Something.
Yeah, at the exact time that there's other people in the kitchen.
So something that bothers me, the guys that he killed, one of them was killed with a throwing knife. But the throwing knife that he pulls from the board that it was on, because he threw it on the board earlier, he used it to chop vegetables, I think.
Carrots.
Yeah. But like I swear when he chopped the carrots, he used a cooking blade.
Yes, he did.
And then he threw the cooking blade.
Yeah.
And then
Except it's a throwing knife once he throws it.
Yeah, and then it's throwing knife, and then he grabs it, and then he uses it later. And then when the guys come down to find the people, it's like, you said he was a cook, right? It's like, yeah. Well, this doesn't look like a cook's knife to you, does it? You know, I'm looking at it, I was like, that's a throwing knife. When did that pop up?
Yeah. It's definitely, there's a couple of little errors like that in here.
But yes, the magic microwave bomb that lasts 30 minutes, that was interesting.
Yeah, which is odd. I don't even know how that goes off. But either way, at this point, Ryback goes out, gets his SEAL sat phone, stumbles across Miss July 89, gets her geared up somehow in perfectly form-fitting uniform, like tactical vest and stuff like that just happened to be around somewhere. I don't know how that worked out.
It's Steven Seagal. He's also a seamstress, I'm assuming.
And then they go out and they start, I guess, fucking shit up, killing some people, so that they can eventually get out to the weapons deck and place a sat phone call to the Pentagon, where they can describe the problem. And as that's happening, that's where we learn that the CIA Stranix used to be one of their guys, and we get this horribly weird line, and I have no clue how it's relevant at all in any way, shape, or form. But as the CIA guy's walking into the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon discussing all of this stuff, I think it's his assistant, throws out this line.
You're in deep kimchi, buddy. Better have it all in one sock for this one.
Deep kimchi?
Apparently North Korea was a serious problem at this time because, I've never even heard that. Like, I was alive during a good portion of the 90s. I've never heard someone like, you're in deep kimchi, buddy.
I mean, I know it was a North Korean sub that he was supposed to be taking, right?
Yeah.
That Stranix supposedly had blown up or whatever, right?
But, I mean, that has to be the only thing that would relevantly make that make sense. But still, they didn't even bring up North Korea until 20 minutes later.
Either way, he phones it in and he says that, they're a group of 30 guys, they've taken it over, blah, blah, blah. CIA guy fills them in that it's likely Stranix. I don't know how they knew that. It doesn't actually say until about 10 minutes later when Stranix is the one talking to them that it's Stranix. So that's a little odd. But he says that, he basically throws out some super crazy conspiracy theory level stuff to, throw them off of what he's actually doing, make himself just look like he's super batshit crazy. I don't know. But basic premise of it is the mercenaries are building this railing system and a crane so that they can offload these Tomahawk missiles to a submarine that is rendezvousing with them over...
But they don't know that. They think they're just going to take the ship and do something with it. They don't know about the submarine or the unloading of it until later on, which is what Ryback tells them when they get in contact.
So Ryback goes around and he starts killing them all off. At this point, Gary Busey goes and looks in the captain's files, and he finds out that Ryback is actually a Navy SEAL. Where he didn't previously know that. Stranix apparently knows Ryback somehow through something, so he kind of has a little bit of, I guess, knowledge of how good he is.
You like how Navy SEALs in Under Siege makes them automatically Batman? Just he's a SEAL. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Game over, man. Rest in peace, Bill Paxton.
Yes. Game over, man. Game over.
But yeah, it's you're a SEAL. Oh, shit. Everything's done for.
Except for the helicopter carrying all of SEAL Team 5 that gets taken out by the machine guns.
No, they were taken out by... The machine gun took out the F-18 because that was to go open by. The helicopter full of SEAL Team 5 members was taken out by the sub.
By the RPG. Yeah,
by the sub with RPGs because Ryback was able to release 5 random members that happened to be in a random room. And then they
got locked in I think it was a bunker.
One of the bunks,
Yeah.
It was one of his cooks and a bunch of other guys, and they sabotaged the electronics so they can't activate the weapon system. And so, Stranded calls up the submachine, the sub to dock basically, and then take out the helicopter.
There's not a whole lot of plot that happens in the last half of this movie.
Yeah, it's just straight from one thing to the next thing to the next thing.
It's 30 to 45 minutes of setup for the movie, and then 45 minutes of action.
Yeah, just continual escalation.
Now, we do get some good lines here and there throughout it, like when Tommy Lee Jones is contacting the submarine from the Missouri, the code names that they have. Kind of. This dude talks about Saturday morning cartoons more in this movie than he should.
Yeah,
I think.
He refers to the captain of the sub as Wile E. Coyote, and then the captain refers to him as the Roadrunner, and then you get this quick line from Gary Busey to Tommy Lee Jones' character.
You're the Roadrunner?
Yeah, never been caught. Mimi.
Just it's so interesting because he's constantly writing that line of like genius and insanity, and like he goes on these tangents about Saturday morning cartoons and. And then like he goes on like other tangents about like, the revolution in like the 60s and, the movement, or is it the 70s? Was it 70s? 60s. 60s. And like he portrays this like outdated aging hipster. Not hipster, hippie.
Yeah.
Hipster's different.
Burnout to the point of becoming violently cynical.
Exactly, and it's really interesting because he's playing this crazy man, but he's also playing the smart man. It's like you're never quite sure where he's at.
So really, in this movie, it's all fairly generic action. There are a couple of cool deaths. You get, there's a guy that gets impaled by a steel girder.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. There's when they all the five guys that he rescues from the bunk, Erika Eleniak and Steven Seagal, when they end up manning the 5-inch guns to take out the sub, that's like, oh, teamwork, great. He wouldn't have been able to do it without anybody, the other people. So
like,
that's kind of cool. And then the knife fight with Tommy Lee Jones.
I'm sorry, that was not cool. That was the funniest.
No. It's cool under the premise that it was actually choreographed. It took them about a month and a half to choreograph that fight scene between Tommy Lee Jones and Steven Seagal. That's the cool part of it. The horribly ridiculous part of it is the way that it was filmed.
Yeah, if you guys ever wanted to know what it would look like if two dudes fought with butterfly knives and not actually like make contact, watch this fight scene because there is so much irrelevant movement. Oh my Jesus.
They're knife fighting, but half of the maneuvers that they're doing is one guy blocking the other guy's knife very quickly with his own knife. It's like, imagine the type of sword fight in a movie, like the old school, King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table type movies where the sword fights were literally them swinging their swords at each other's swords.
Yes.
For like 20 minutes until finally that one guy got that swing in where he happens to hit them in the armor and that kills them. Same basic principle, except in this case it's 3 or 4 cuts here or there, and then finally you get the gouging out of Tommy Lee Jones' eye and then a knife stabbed into the top of the head before being shoved into a radar terminal.
Yeah.
Something. By the way, most cheesy prosthetic ever for Tommy Lee Jones' head.
Yeah, it's like one size too small, coloring's off, and just like bloop. I'm like, that is really bad.
It looks like a Ziploc bag filled full of Jell-O.
Yes.
That's basically it.
But
that's pretty cool death scene. Other than that, you've got 45 minutes of rather generic action chopped in with a couple of clever lines from Steven Seagal or Erika Eleniak.
I think one of my favorite lines, besides Erika Eleniak following Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal was like, I told you to stay back. And she was like, nah, the safest place on the ship is right behind you. And I was like, the last time you split up, you got caught by the enemy. So really, yeah that's thinking right there. But besides that line, there was this one line where Steven Seagal had just sabotaged the sub so that it couldn't submerge. And he was wounded by various harpoon hooks. I don't know.
I think they were like grappling hook type things.
But basically they couldn't figure out where he was, so they started just throwing grappling hooks and tugging on him. But he goes back onto the ship, and the guy that plays Dahmer, Chief O'Brien, comes around, spots him, and he's like, "Ha ha, I got you now." And then Which got
Erika
Miss
Eleniak's
July 89 shoots
Jordan
him.
Tate.
Shoots him to save Steven Seagal, and then 5 seconds later it goes back to them over on the sub, and Tommy Lee Jones is like, "Hey, where's Dahmer?" And then his assistant says this:
Where's Dahmer?
Probably dead.
Probably dead.
You know, like, I like the fact that this isn't one of those ones where like Dahmer was checking the seaboard or whatever. It's like, no, it's like he's been gone for about 5 minutes. He's dead.
We all fucked, man.
Yeah, we all done. I mean, I was watching this with my friend Tally, and I think the best part was like I stopped the film right there. And I was like, you want to know what really happened? And I pulled up this clip. Hold on, Steve. I pulled up this clip of an old Batman animated episode where it's called The Smartest Goon Ever, if you want to look it up on YouTube, where Batman is rifling through a room and the goon opens the door and is like, I think I heard something. And he just sees Batman. And Batman is just staring at this goon. And he just slowly closes the door. And another goon walks past him and is like, what was it? And he's like, nothing. You know, like, this is what happened under siege. You know, like, after a while, the goons would start noticing that there are 30 men, we're down to 5. And, like, one dude be like, I'm out. I'm done.
Wait, we're supposed to build these cranes. Where'd all our guys go?
You know,
I don't know.
Like, there was like 30 of us, and then now there's just you, me, and Jim. What the hell?
Yeah. Not to mention Steven Seagal indiscriminately killing all of them, like the 3 steel workers that were just cutting up the girders, right? They didn't have guns. They didn't have knives, you know, nothing like that. One of them grabbed a screwdriver to try and fight Steven Seagal. But that was only after Steven Seagal pulled out a knife and was like, come on, you know? It's like that guy was, like, that was self-defense. Every other person, if they got a gun, they're shooting whatever, you know, free game. But the 3 steelworker guys, I mean, that guy got his collarbone cut through by a bandsaw. Come on, that's just, ugh. But that being said,
You're not a cook.
Yeah, well, I also cook.
you know, that being said, though, at least he is mildly entertaining in this movie.
I mean, like, as bad as this movie is, and it's bad, I promise you, like, this is not what I would consider a good movie in any way, shape, or form. I still enjoy, like, the pure cheese, like the pure essence of cheese in this film.
I give this movie, so personally, I'm going to give this a 6.5, and I'm going to be 100% outright honest here, where 2.5 of those points belong to Gary Busey and Tommy Lee Jones, and without them, this movie would be a giant flaming pile of horse shit.
So I'm actually with you on this one, but for different reasons. So I gave this movie a 6.5, and I gave it on the grounds of 2 points being for Busey and Jones, but the last 0.5 was for Miss July, and not for her tits, but because like
her fake tits,
terrible tits. But like the fact that like she went from being completely useless to like, it's like, you know what? I've seen it all. I was like, give me the fucking gun. Here's how you use it, you son of a bitch. Now move on.
Yeah.
Don't be a bitch. You know, like, there's a dude that pops up and is like, I'm just an engineer. I don't know how. And Miss July is like, here's a gun. Clock placed it.
I was doing laundry through Desert Storm. Desert Storm lasted 8 fucking days. Come on.
I just like that, you know, she wasn't like the completely like, you know, effeminate character throughout the entire film. She developed a little bit.
Yes. She wasn't just the useless eye candy.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the second Under Siege movie. And before we talk about that, we're going to take a brief intermission for, you know, bathroom breaks, beverage breaks, or whatever you guys need to do.
Or, you know, to look up, what's his name from the other films.
Or to look up Miss July 1989.
Good luck.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
3 years and 30 pounds later, Steven Seagal is back as Chief Petty Officer Casey Ryback, former Navy SEAL. Except this time, he's on a train, and he's no longer a petty officer. He's just a cook.
Just a cook. No, he's Chef Ryback now.
Chef Ryback.
Although it kind of bothered me because like no one at his restaurant called him Chef. They just called him Ryback. Which,
and he's immediately dropped off at the start of the movie by some sort of government official, which makes you believe that he's still going out and doing Navy SEAL missions
or something. Like you just don't know what he's up to anymore.
Like I don't know. Either way, let's go ahead and run the trailer for this, and then we'll go through the breakdown.
Let's do this.
A top secret satellite with nuclear capabilities. A team of international terrorists. A government-held hostage.
President and the others been safely evacuated.
An undetectable moving headquarters.
I'd like to call your attention to the highly trained men with the automatic weapons they may be called upon to shoot you.
There's only one problem.
Any other heroes?
The cook from Under Siege is back.
I'm not even a good cook, but there are some things I'm good at.
And things are really heating up.
That's the 45, okay?
Yeah. Last time, he rocked the boat. This time, the sky's the limit. Steven Seagal. Under Siege 2. Dark Territory.
This, I'm trained for.
All right, so basic rundown of this movie is there is a CIA-funded organization that develops a satellite that can, through the use of ionic particle wave something or other, cause seismic events.
So like in GoldenEye?
Yes.
Okay.
In targeted areas, worldwide, something along those lines. That gets launched into space. The military tests it out. The military, in this case, being only moderately involved. I mean, they seem to be replaced relatively quickly, but there are two captains that have the launch codes for this satellite, and then you have Kurtwood Smith, who is just awesome in everything that he's in. Doesn't matter how big or small his role is, he nails it every time. That run this whole thing, and you find out that I guess later on in the movie that this whole thing was designed by one guy, and that guy is fucking crazy. But before we learn that, we find out that Casey Ryback is going on a train trip with his niece to California following his brother, her father, and her mother dying in a plane crash. The only thing that mentions the fact that it was a plane crash that they died in is somebody says, "Why would you take a train to California?" And he goes, "Would you want to fly if your parents just died in a plane crash?" So, assumptions. Either way, his niece is played by a young Katherine Heigl, who I believe is like 15 or 16 in this movie.
Yeah, she was
something
super
like that.
young, yeah.
And then once they get on the train, we are introduced to the plucky train porter, played by Morris Chestnut, who ends up becoming the sidekick / comic relief.
Yeah, dude, I saw a picture of Morris Chestnut recently. He looks way different. Like, that dude grew up good.
Yeah. I've not looked up anything recent.
Yeah, I mean, like he was apparently in like Boys in the Hood and a couple other films, but like I recognize him in his youth, but like seeing him recently, the picture that he has on IMDb, I was like, damn, that boy, that kid grew up to be a man.
Yeah, I know. He only looks like he's like maybe 18, 19 in this movie. I mean, yeah, early 20s at best.
Yeah,
you know, but basically what happens is the train gets hijacked by the guy who developed the earthquake device satellite thing, and a band of mercenaries who are going to destroy the Pentagon and then auction off their satellite technology to the highest bidder. They want $1 billion, something like that. So they end up killing a bunch of people, taking over the satellite to prove that they have control over it, starting the auction process, take all the people on the train hostage. The reason they're on the train is because if they are moving using the satellite controls from that train, it makes it impossible for them to be tracked or located, which would normally have prevented the government agency ATAC from determining where they were taking over the satellite from.
So that was actually reason number 2. Reason number 1's a little more discreet. When you have
they also wanted to capture the 2 captains that were on the train together, sleeping together, so that they could take over the launch codes.
Yeah, it's like honestly, like that was like my first thing was like, when you have a 2-man system that's specifically designed to make sure that people can't use the super death ray in space.
Get a gay guy and a lipstick lesbian.
Yeah, just
saying. This is why there should be gays in the military.
Yeah. I mean, just like, and they're screwing behind people's backs, and oh, look at that, the bad guy happens to know about it. Go figure.
Yes, but on the flip side of things, Brenda Backey, who plays one of the captains, Captain Linda Gilder, happens to be this movie's de facto boob shower.
No. Incorrect.
Side boob shower.
She shows some bra, but the mandatory Steven Seagal boob showage in this was actually done beforehand when they were testing the satellite. They tested the targeting, and the dude zoomed in on a random girl at the beach, and he was like, "Oh, she's turning over, And one guy was like, "Get the optics squared away," and like they started like defraggling the optics, and you get boobs, and we're just like, really?
Defraggling is a technical term, by the way, that only applies to the viewing of boobs.
Yes, yes. I mean, because no matter how good the camera is, as long as you have movie technology, you can clear it up.
I'm actually just working off of the premise that they had high resolution anyway, but because it was still the early 90s, they just had to wait for that download.
Oh, yeah.
Because back in the day, I mean, I know most people don't have to experience this nowadays with high-speed internet, but when you downloaded a JPEG back in the day, it would actually, the way that it would render on screen by the browser was it would start out very pixelated, and then as it downloaded, the pixelation would clear up, and you would get the resulting high-resolution image. Nowadays, it just loads up. So I'm thinking that it was actually just a matter of,
just their
slow download
26K or whatever.
28K modems.
28K, yeah. So anyways, so
the passengers are taken hostage. The mercenaries are taking over the train. Steven Seagal, who is, Casey fucking Ryback.
He's in the kitchen making a cake.
When the mercenaries come on, he hides and is able to
killed,
and then he's able to effectively kill everybody and save his niece and somehow still contact the Pentagon and all this other stuff in the process
using
while he saves the day.
His
his Apple Newton Palm Pilot device thing
that he uses to fax a message.
Yes. So I think that gives a basic overview. I mean, he saves the day, the satellite gets blown up, terrorists get killed, everybody gets saved, so on and so forth, right?
So this film went out of its way in the prosthetics department because there is like arm breakage and finger cutting and just As like if they can make it look weird and gross, they try to do it.
Yeah, I want to say there's 3 or 4 good, solid, like, break an arm backwards, something or other type thing. Which really disturbs me, because this movie was directed by the same guy who directed Young Guns 2. And Young Guns 2 is a phenomenal movie. And I just feel like, you know, the shots that they had, I understand they were working on a train and it was all really close and stuff like that. But when you're filming action, like, some of the best action that you can get is just stepping back and letting, you know, especially like Steven Seagal actually is really good at Aikido, you know? So having something where it's martial arts like that, it's almost better to take a step back and just let the actor do their thing instead of getting right up close on it and having it be this impossible cut together piece of shit that, I mean, some of those knife fight scenes are just like laughably ridiculous.
It's so bad. It's you have to see it. I mean, like, we'll get to it in a minute because it's one of the last scenes in the movie is the big knife fight sequence, but all right, so let's start from the beginning. They get on the train. Casey is clearly unable to connect with his niece, buys her a teddy bear, and just so far withdrawn. It's been 5 years since last time they met.
She doesn't like him or has an aversion to him because apparently him and her father were not on the best of terms and hadn't spoken in many years. And
he didn't make it to the funeral.
Yeah, he didn't make it to the funeral, and she takes that personally. He didn't make it to the funeral because he was on a government op. So, you know, he can't really say like, oh, sorry, I was, Navy SEAling it up, but, how's your dad? But.
So anyways, they get on the train, and the girl is marked as a +1 for ride back. So her name isn't even recorded, which is unheard of today in travel. Like, everyone's name is recorded.
Yeah.
But it's ride back +1. They get on the train, and, soon, subsequent, all the bad guys get on the train. Which one of the bad guys, like, I love this guy, and I want to see him in more things, but, like, whenever I think about him, all I remember is he was the bad guy from The Mask.
That would be...
just very pretty boy face, like you want to punch his face, but he's also...
I want to say Peter Green.
Yeah, that might be it. I don't know. I recognize him as bad guy from The Mask. I'm like, man, it's this guy. Like,
yeah,
like you're kind of scummy, but you're kind of likable.
Yeah, in The Mask. Yeah, that's Peter Green.
Yeah, but yeah, he pops up and you're just like, oh, hey, it's this dude.
This also has Patrick Kilpatrick in it.
Oh, dude.
You may remember from our Class of 1999 episode where I described him as the bad guy in everything.
Yep. Oh, man.
Yes. And then we've got, some other bad guys that pop up in this one, some of which we've seen in other movies, and some I don't think really played bad guys in other stuff that they were in. Like, Eric Bogosian, who actually plays the satellite designer main bad guy.
Yeah, dude, that guy had the biggest case of nerd rage I've ever seen.
Yeah, like he doesn't really play bad guys and stuff, which is interesting that he was the bad guy in this. Normally he's like the professor or something like that.
Yeah, like a witty yet stumbling professor type of character. Just having him play like just the over the top. And so the reason why he's the bad guy in this flick is because he created this satellite, created the programming for the satellite, and was subsequently told by the CIA director, what was his name again? Cryburn? Breaker. He was subsequently told by Breaker that his research is unusable and his department is being closed down, in which case they then took his research and created this damn thing. And then apparently he then killed himself, which I'm assuming is yet another situation to where the CIA tried to disavow information and kill him and failed.
Yeah.
But we're brought back to Breaker yet again effing up, and then the two generals from the first movie come back and like, what's going on?
Pointing out the fact that Breaker effed up.
Yeah, it's like this man's insane, and Breaker says, well, you don't get results from sane people.
Yeah, or no, it was sane people don't build things like this.
But yeah, it's once again proving the fact that, like, Steve had mentioned this beforehand out of the show. Why isn't this guy fired? Like, this is time number 2 where he's basically almost killed everybody.
I mean, steal a handful of nuclear weapons. Oh yeah, that was my guy. Oh, okay, cool. Well, everything's resolved. Go back to work. Nothing to see here. Next one. Oh, steal a satellite that's capable of destroying literally anything. Like it says at one point, if they targeted the San Andreas Fault, that they could have all of California wiped off the western seaboard within a half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
This is the power that they put in this guy's hands. And the CIA director that keeps having this, stuff stolen from him and shit like that, they're just like, oh, well, Casey Ryback fixed it, so I guess you can keep your job.
Go figure. At this point, though, I'm kind of wondering, like, if they don't start developing, like, a Casey Ryback, like, GPS system, because he seems to be at the center whenever anything goes wrong.
I don't know. Either way, Casey Ryback ends up restoring power to part of the train that had gotten the power cut from it, and attaching his Newton pocket palm device thing to the payphone and having it automatically redial to send a fax to his cook, who's then able to contact the Joint Chiefs of Staff with the fax information, report the location of the train. This movie is basically, again, 45 minutes of setup and then about 45 minutes of action. And during the 45 minutes of action at the end, we really only get like 2 or 3 really solid, good lines.
Yeah, I mean, one of the lines was once they finally get contacted by Ryback and they get his message, they're like, well, you think you'll be able to do it? And one of the generals says this, and it's just so, like, out of time for anybody. It's just like, when I heard it, I'm like, did he really just say that?
I got the money and the moxie to pull it off.
They got the money and the moxie to pull it off. Does anyone use moxie anymore in the 90s?
I think the worst line is whenever somebody tries to throw something in a script to make it sound technical, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about, it only makes the actor sound like they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And it immediately takes me out of it when some, technology-related character somehow is unable to get out a single line of technology-related dialogue that sounds believable because the writer just had no fucking clue.
Which, in 5 minutes later from the moxie to pull it off, they realize that Ryback is sending a message using his Palm Pilot, and so they were able to hack into it. I mean, they were able to hijack the receive. Anyways, the dude says this.
Gigabyte of RAM should do the trick.
That's how he hacks it, by the way. Gigabyte of RAM should do it. Oh, hell, I gotta crack this password or something. Nowadays, if there was some sort of actual technical application to this, it'd be like, oh, let's pop up the rainbow tables or get some OCL hashcat and GPU array on this, or something. Not gigabyte of RAM should do it.
It's just like I would be willing to accept it if they just made up fake stuff that just sounded like hyper technological based, like things that don't exist.
1 million megabytes.
To where like they use technology like this is what we're talking about with Quantum Leap, where they used fake technology to begin with, and so if we went back to watch it again, we wouldn't be like it's like with 1 gigabyte of RAM we'll be able to go back in time.
This guy was like a CIA developer or something like that, engineer. He could have been like, oh, an Apple Newton. Hold on. Yeah. I can run this through my CIA crack database and
piggyback the data waves on this. Hop on the radio. It's like give us something more than just 1 gigabyte of RAM on it. What?
1 gigabyte of RAM should do it.
But once he was able to hack into the information, he was able to actually go into the database, and then they find out that the person sending the message, one of the things on his Newton Apple whatever device was a bunch of cooking recipes. And in the cooking recipes,
Ryback's Tactics.
They find Ryback's Tactics.
Ryback's Tactics.
Ryback.
That's what it says. Ryback.
Casey fucking Ryback. Jesus Christ.
Who's Casey fucking Ryback?
Casey Ryback's a former SEAL team captain and counter-terrorist expert.
He's my instructor at Fort Bragg. He's the best there is.
I thought you're the best there is, man.
Now, bear in mind, he says that he was his instructor at Fort Bragg, and Fort Bragg is a Green Beret training facility, not a Navy SEAL training facility. So that doesn't make sense.
But at this point, they don't realize that he's on the train up until, they just figure it out. Oh, wait, hold a minute. Like, we have this database. Is it coming from here?
Who sent the message?
It's Casey Ryback, sir.
Casey Ryback? Casey Ryback's on this train?
What the hell's he doing on this train? Leave it to Casey.
He's on vacation with his niece, sir.
The best part is, like, 2 minutes later when they realize that, yes, Casey Ryback is on the train, and the only way that we can stop it is we have to go blow it up, and we have to blow it up before the satellite can fire in 18 minutes. Foreshadows the rest of the movie. Which, by the way, that 18 minutes in movie time is apparently 35 minutes, if you look at the timestamps on the movies.
Yeah, and, like, this isn't something that we're just saying, like, is, like, fake foreshadow. Like, they flat out say it out loud. They actually say this line.
Son, but there are over 8 million people in Washington. Unless Casey Ryback comes up with some kind of a miracle in the next 18 minutes, I got no choice.
Like, they flat out say it's like, Casey Ryback's gonna fix it. Otherwise, I got no choice. Well, clearly it's gonna happen.
So at that point, Casey Ryback and the porter, what was his name? Bobby?
I don't know his name. Like, everyone just called him the porter. Like,
the porter?
They just continually called him porter.
Either way, their characters start going through and literally killing everybody. Indiscriminately killing everybody.
Dude, there was a scene where the porter is, like, letting loose his submachine gun in a room full of hostages.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does he not just kill random people? Because, like outside of, like, firing from the waist up, and luckily, like, all the hostages were, like, sitting down, and there was actually one hostage that was actually trying to help, like, at one point.
And the one Navy officer.
Yeah, like, actually goes up to pull a guy down. Oh. But, like, besides that, like, the porter could have easily just killed any random civilian in that train.
But, he's working with Casey Ryback, and Casey Ryback is a bad motherfucker. Mm-hmm. So, I believe it's even accentuated when the porter tells him that he's a bad motherfucker.
Oh, shit. You definitely a bad motherfucker. Let's go kick some more ass, dog.
So that's right after a bad guy decides to monologue to the porter about how he's going to kill him, just long enough for Ryback to show up.
Oh yeah, it was the dude from The Mask. It was that guy, Green. It was just like, and you're talking way too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's this movie it completely accelerates during the last 45 minutes. Accelerates to ridiculous levels, including the horribly, horribly chopped together knife fight.
So the knife fight happens between Steven Seagal and Patrick Kilpatrick. And, one of my personal favorite things to do in the universe...
No, it's not Patrick Kilpatrick.
Oh,
Patrick Kilpatrick is the one that ends up getting stabbed in the throat for talking back to the main.
Oh, that's right. Yes. It was...
The main guy is Everett McGill, who plays Marcus Penn.
Yes. So Patrick Kilpatrick was the second to the last bad guy to die.
He was also in License to Kill with Steven Seagal.
Oh. Okay, so anyways, he's fighting the big bad guy. He's like, there's everyone else is dead except for the big bad guy and the computer nerd. And I personally love when actors scream really badly. Like, it's my go-to whenever it happens. I make sure to grab a clip of it for you guys, and this is one of those clips where, like, you expect a really, like, and you get this instead.
Ryback's looting the hostage cars.
Ryback.
It's just one of the worst screams. Just Ryback.
Oh man, it is horrible. Like, not even like a little horrible. Like it is really, really bad horrible.
So he finishes clearing the hostage cars. The big bad kills Patrick Kilpatrick. They go down. They get into this really awkward knife fight. And it was actually visually interesting because they have Ryback walk through the dining cart, which is immaculate somehow throughout this entire exchange. And then, they have just you and me, mano y mano, throw the guns to the side, like, okay. And then they whip out the knives. And they get into this really, it starts off actually a pretty good knife fight. Like, it's very standard, very straightforward. And
it looks like they actually did do some decent choreography on it at first.
Yeah.
The problem is when it gets into the editing. And I don't know if this is a directorial choice, a producer's choice, because Steven Seagal did produce it.
Yeah.
Or if this was just really shitty editing. But the Van Damme effect where they intentionally replay the same clip 3 or 4 times in a row in order to emphasize that cool thing that Van Damme had just done.
Mm-hmm, the split kick, yeah.
They kind of try to do that, except in this case, it's stabbing a guy in the armpit, and it's very obviously clear that it's the same stabbing being done multiple times. And it's just bad.
So they get into a grapple. They fall downstairs, and they happen to appear in the galley, the kitchen, where, basically it's like thematically clear that the cook's going to have the lead here. And there's actually one scene where Seagal is waving his hands all in the air and does a spin, and then he moves around him, and they pan out, and Seagal gets around him. And then they repeat that scene 3 times where he all of a sudden gets on the opposite side again and does the same moves and then rotates around him again.
And it's filmed so close that you can't tell what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
It basically looks like a slap fight.
Yeah, it's really bad. They're basically navel to navel, and there's hands in the air, and they're trying to stab each other, and it just
I know this is supposed to be the big dramatic fight scene at the end of the movie, but basically what we're getting out of this is you could have just as easily put pillows in both of their hands and had it be more entertaining, because at least then you would have had a large enough object to follow that you could tell what was going on.
But eventually,
plus Steven Seagal pillow fight.
Eventually, they get into a far enough frame apart to where they can have the climatic final movement. In which case, Seagal literally just snaps the knife out of the other guy's hands and then finishes him off.
Yeah.
And it was very anticlimactic, but clearly because they were in the kitchen, they needed a one-liner here, and so Steven Seagal gives the last one-liner of the film.
Nobody beats me in the kitchen.
Nobody beats me in the kitchen. We all know, Steven. We all know. Because you put on a good 30 pounds in between every movie.
So then we have after the climactic battle, we have the super anticlimactic battle where he goes upstairs and it's him and the nerd. And the nerd's like, it's too late. You can't do anything. They can't find the thing. My program's too good. And Steven Seagal, as the computer whiz that he is like, shoot the phone and the laptop, because that will
shoot the laptop, stops the program from running, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it no longer is. Did the writers know anything about technology?
I don't think so, because a gigabyte should do it.
But I'm sitting there and the actor is like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I'm like, you didn't have to think of that. You ran the program. The program is currently running. Is it a program that needs continual processing through your laptop? I doubt that.
So the 18 minutes was, I guess, the program had contacted the satellite, determined where its position was, determined that in 18 minutes it was going to be able to shoot the Pentagon. And the laptop was sitting there counting down that 18 minutes until it could send the shoot signal, because apparently there's no, thought process of a system queue or anything like that when it comes to writing these movies.
The satellite was going to shoot regardless. The laptop was supposedly running an algorithm to prevent them from figuring out which satellite was the correct satellite.
Yeah.
But the algorithm should have been running regardless, because unless it specifically has to run from his laptop, which honestly, I doubt that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, he integrated this ghost satellite thing into the other satellite to be able to mask its position, and his laptop was just enabling that function So I'm assuming this shit works like a switch. Like, you turn it on, it's on. It's not like, oh, I turned on the thing, but it's only running while my laptop is connected to it, because as soon as my laptop shuts off, the switch automatically turns off too.
Yeah, which then allows them to dial into the satellite to self-destruct before it can shoot.
And hit it with an anti-satellite missile.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, do those exist? Are anti-satellite missiles real? I mean,
I have no clue.
It sounds interesting, but I don't imagine the technology being very necessary up until, apparently now, because people send lasers into the sky.
Apparently, either way, once the laptop is destroyed, this allows for the porter and Katherine Heigl to both climb up a ceiling onto a helicopter that the porter has taken over from the terrorists, because that was the terrorist way of escaping, while Steven Seagal runs from one end of the train to the other end of the train as it's colliding with another train, so that he can outrun the other train that is pushing through the train he's in, and the fireball being generated by the two trains colliding together, so that he can jump out of the back of the train onto the rope ladder hanging down from the helicopter.
Yeah, what really stinks is, I didn't get a good idea of his position. Was he nowhere near the front of the train? Was he just at the back of the train, had to run through, two train cars?
I think it was maybe 2 or 3 train cars.
Okay, but, afterwards, it goes back to the Pentagon, or not the Pentagon, whatever the HQ is, and they're like, oh, it's all the civilians were saved, yay! And I'm thinking, what about the guy that was driving the other train?
Oh, it shows him, actually, right before the two trains collide. He's, standing there as the engineer, and he's just looking, and he's like, eh? And then the trains collide.
So there was a casualty. There was a civilian casualty, and so we're left I don't think your description of casualties is the same as mine.
Not to mention the two drivers that had taken over the train, right?
Yeah.
That had hijacked the train. There's 2 guys up front driving the train. And they're just perfectly okay. Oh, yeah, no, our job, yeah, we're going to get paid to collide into this other train, and it's going to be great. I mean, we're both going to die, but think of how much money we'll have afterward. It's seriously? This movie, I have to give it bonus points based solely on its ridiculousness. It is a ridiculous action movie. I can understand why this was probably the start of the downfall of Steven Seagal, or, as some would call it, the rise of his direct-to-video career. Because this movie is just... It's full of so many things that make me just sit back and go, what the fuck? That I can't even count them all. That being said, however, in this instance, it actually deserves bonus points instead of docking some points off, because of how absolutely ridiculous it is in an entertaining way. I don't think it tries to be funny, but holy shit, it's funny. Because of that, I'm going to give this a solid 5.
Honestly, this is not a situation where Steve and I agree way too closely on things. I give it a solid 5 as well, just for how bizarre some of the thing is, some of the situation is, and just how insane the Porter character was, and the fact that his culminating moment is when he was able to mimic the Aikido move where he wraps his hand around and throws this woman out of a helicopter.
Yeah.
I was really? He's oh man. It's
And it's seriously, he is responsible for killing one person. One person that he wouldn't have even killed if that one person hadn't gone up after him in the helicopter.
And then he gets this really righteous moment to where the helicopter pilot's yeah, honey, you showed him, and he just runs around yeah, showed him, honey, yeah. Now put this copter on top of this train, or I'll kill you. I'm like what?
Yeah, he was there to... He was the plucky comic relief.
Yeah, he was Black Up. I mean, I have nothing else to see here.
Yeah. He played black guy number 1. Well, no, black guy number 2, because black guy number 1 always dies.
Yeah. Which is, Kind of like in the last Under Siege movie when the first black guy died. You can't help but feel that second black guy was like, oh no.
No, second black guy at that point was like, oh fuck, I thought it was gonna be me. Oh, I gotta call my mama. Oh, it's a good day. Oh Lord. But yeah, that was a little racist.
A little bit, but I mean, you have to realize that, like, when a black person watches
that was
this,
early '90s movie racist.
Yeah, when a black person watches this movie and they see a black guy on screen, like, he's gonna die. He's gonna die. And not only that, but like in the Under Siege 1, they specifically called out as like, what was a faggot? I'm like, again, can't be gay in the '90s. Just you can't.
'80s, '90s, can't do it.
Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't be gay.
So there you have it, folks. Under Siege 1, 6.5. Under Siege 2, 5.0. Anything that Steven Seagal made after Under Siege 2 is you would just start shaving off the points. I mean, you can start throwing points out so quickly after Under Siege 2 that it's like a stack of ones in front of a stripper, just making it rain with all the points that you're just removing from that stack. I'm
just waiting for him to follow the path of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like if JCVD can do it, Steven Seagal, he has a general idea of what he needs to do now.
I think the big difference between JCVD and Steven Seagal, though, is that JCVD can actually act. I mean, he proved that he is actually a good dramatic actor.
And he's also proved that he can make fun of himself, where I don't think Seagal can actually make fun of himself.
Seagal is like 98% ego and 2% talent.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Stallone better, Dolph Lundgren, all of them have been able to rejuvenate their careers where they were these action stars in the 80s and early 90s, where Steven Seagal has just perpetually declined. And it's because Steven Seagal doesn't seem to realize that he's Steven Seagal and that really doesn't hold a whole lot of weight anymore.
No.
All
right.
saying.
That about wraps up our show. Steve, if you want to give us our exit.
If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can hit us up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/abovetheairwaves or at abovetheairwaves.com. And once again, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/abovetheairwaves so that we can continue doing what we do.
And as usual, I'm going to close off with one of my favorite witticisms.
Go get my pies out of the oven!
Take it easy, folks.
Good night.